Usually I want to do some commenting on the tournament of this past weekend, and I will. I'll do a little commenting on that. You get, I'm sure the sponsors weren't thrilled. Ben Curtis winning, not a great big drawing card. However, who's to say everybody's supposed to be a drawing card, right? Good for him. Really nice guy. Great family guy. Wins money for his family. Fantastic. Sponsors weren't too excited. Matt Avery, man, you know what can you say about this guy? I mean, this guy absolutely needs, let's say, he needs an agent, really, really bad. He needs somebody to take him aside and say, hey, Matt, but however, maybe Matt just wants to make money playing golf, and he will do just fine. There's no question about that. Certainly, he's not going to get a lot of sponsors exemptions or a lot of off-course outings. The guy has a real chip on his shoulders. Yeah. I was listening to Rosenberg talking about just trying to be as nice as he could about gentleman's got an attitude. Well, that's inside media talk for not so great. Okay, so on that note, my mind is always going on how to get you to improve your golf game. We know these guys can do it. How do you get to improve your golf game? Well, I'm 55 years old now, and if I could go back and do it all again, I think one of the things that I could best probably do for you is to guide your journey so that you don't make the same mistakes I made or what everybody's going to make. If I come to you and I say, you know, I know every mistake you're going to make before you make it, don't do it. And if you don't listen, then I think it's kind of your fault. But if I don't warn you, then it's kind of my fault. I look back at stuff like just think about it. Just open up your mind just a little bit. How hard can it be to make your hands do something? I mean, they do the most let's say, like knitting's got to be more precise than making your hands go like this on a golf swing. It can't be that hard, right? Really, when you really think about it. There's a line that your arm should swing on. It's not an impossible line. It's a line that anybody can do. But number one, you got to make sure you've got the right line and it is not down the line. And it is not inside out. Okay, so you can research that and what the arms can do. What kills me is that we actually really believe that swinging your hands and your arms correctly is like almost impossible, like there's some kind of coordinates that you and I and most people aren't allowed to use or something, and only the best players in the world can. We seem to never want to worry much about the pivot. We just think, well, it's just back and forth. You know, I can tell you it's way trickier than that. It's way more than that. If we could get past the point, or if we can get to the point where you could believe that the hands aren't that tough to make happen, the arms aren't that tough to make happen, maybe we could set that aside and put our 100% of our focus on how the body motion is supposed to move. But how do you do that when you already think you've got it figured out? You take it to your right foot, you take it to your left foot. Wow, how hard can that be? And it's way more precise than that. If we could just get it to the point where you say, my arms and hands are fine, let's really study the pivot, then you might get somewhere. Everything that I've always done since I met Tom Tomasello in 1985 was to color code and break the swing down into pieces. The reason I broke it to pieces is because after I got taught by him, I realized the total doesn't break. Pieces of the total break. And you absolutely can get to the point where you don't believe it's your hands, you don't believe it's your arms. It could be your alignments, ball position, and or your pivot. Well, if you really practice smart, you can get to the point where the pivot doesn't break that much. You can get to the point where your alignments are not that bad. Nobody real. Hey, if you didn't live with a history of hitting big hooks and big slices, your alignments would just be fine. Is if you hooked it and sliced it forever, you start getting your alignments way out. Take a beginner, take somebody, just take them out on the driving range and ask them to hold a golf club and aim at something. See how far bad they are. You won't get anybody that's really bad. It's after you hit some shots that you start to get worse. If you start slicing it, you start aiming further left. If you start hooking it, you start aiming further right. If you never hit big hooks and slices, you'd have a really good aim. So it's not that big of a deal. Aiming's not that tough. Ball position is tricky, but it's not like, wow, that's way out. It gets a little out. So I think the best thing I can do for you, I built the website. It's a very elaborate website. There's not much that's not on there. I built it so that I could lead people for very little money in the right directions to find out what their needs are. I don't think I can do that until you start to realize that things like, well, I came over the top, I lifted my head, I came out of it, I pushed it to the right, I slid by it. Those are all nice little catch sayings that people invented, but they don't go anywhere. They don't help you. Okay, so in the time frame that's allotted for me in this time frame, there's not a whole lot that I can do that's a lot more than that, but I can ask you to go to my website and do some research. I can ask you to start recognizing that if you break the golf swing down into its pieces, you can quickly get to the point where it's unlikely that this will break, it's unlikely that that'll break, and if it does, it breaks a little. So, if you're not paying attention to how the pivot works, if you're not willing to buy into a different idea, then there's not much chance of moving forwards. Don't ever buy into, I know what to do, I just can't do it. When you really think about it, that doesn't make a lot of sense. I'm just going to add one more thing. Putting stroke. So let's say you got 150 tour players out there. Every day they average 2 or 3 hours a day practicing putting. They get 2x4s, they get arcs, they get this, they get that, they get... Do you really think if we measured them all, their putting strokes would be that dynamically different? I mean, how can that be? So what I'm alluding to is something that I'm going to really work on over the next little while is, how do I get you to understand that it is not your stroke? I can't really fix you the way I'd like to if you're continuously thinking it's your stroke. If I can figure out a way to bypass that and say, come on guys, you've done this 60 times a day for 2 months now. It cannot be the stroke. Let's get to the truth. And the truth will be people that really putt good have a history of putting good. People that don't putt good have a history of not putting good. I could almost guarantee you this. The best putter on the PGA Tour, if you measured him on a fantastic, let's say, computer, you might find out that he does not have the best putting stroke. And if that's true, then we have to rethink our thinking, don't we? If that's true, maybe we got to get to the point where, and I'm going to give you a hint here, if in your mind's eye, and in your mind, at the moment of impact of the stroke, if you really aren't believing that ball's not going to go in the hole, there's a whole lot of stuff that can happen and go wrong between your brain and the putter and the ball. I know, that's wild, that's way out there. 5% of the people that I just said this to will get it. But anyways, if 5% get it, I'm on the right track. Hope you enjoyed, hope you keep coming back. There's never an end to what we can talk about at this game. Bye now.